Our NBA TV Finals coverage continues from media availability, presented by YouTube TV. Run DBC back together for the old Monday night crew. Casey Stern, 3D, Bones, gentlemen, happy finals.
Happy finals to you. Good to see you guys.
I'm looking at my clock, Casey. I got to bring home some gifts for my boys, so I'm waiting for the team shop.
I was just glad that DZ was kind enough to join us at the desk because he's too important now to hang out with us. So
hey, well, you know, sometimes
he'll be here for a segment.
You got to move around a little bit and touch the people.
All right. Well, speaking of the people, they've been touched through social media by the events at the end of Game 1, and it does not the information that is stop. Let's take a look. Now, you all remember this play. If you don't, you probably should. You've seen it 9 zillion times by now, too many for JR and his family members. But watch what happens after here, because we saw this video with LeBron, but then you get to the bench, and now the video 3D comes out of LeBron not realizing they had a timeout, and then when he realizes they had a timeout, that's like an apoplectic LeBron.
Yeah, it's frustration because if you have a timeout, he's hoping that someone would call it. I think it was, 4.2 or something like that when JR gets the rebound before he starts dribbling out, and that's definitely frustration on his face.
You know, I got to ask you honestly, because we knew in the overtime it was not, and I hate to go back to this, it was not going to probably end well because of what happened, but doesn't this worry you even more, Bones? Like, how are they going to go from this moment we're seeing to all of a sudden going out and playing a good overtime session?
Well, I mean, you never know when it is that you're going to learn lessons. For the Cavs, they learned a really late one in Game 1, and you could see LeBron exacerbated by the fact that it was not communicated about the timeout. They absolutely could have set up something or had a different game plan in mind, but there's just a breakdown in the chain of communication from what it was that goes from the bench to the players, ultimately to the captain on the floor, to everybody around. And really a missed opportunity where Cleveland, with everything stacked against them, had to have as many chances as they could, and they missed out on a golden opportunity in Game 1 to maybe have just one more possession in the game.
In Game 2, guys, you looked for a bounce-back redemption song, if you will, right, 3D, from – don't forget George Hill, obviously, who felt he took the onus on himself for missing the second free throw, and then JR. Two very different performances in the second game. George Hill was fantastic. JR not really involved, and that begs the question, what did we get from the supporting cast? There were so many potential assists, so many opportunities that were missed in Game 2.
For whatever reason for the Cavs, Brent, knowing that they have veteran players and this whole thing about playing better at home and on the road and getting wide open shots. They went through the same thing with the Boston Celtics, where they got wide open shots on the road, for whatever reason couldn't make them. Then they come home and they start knocking down these shots. And we were talking about that a little bit in the room before we came out here, that even the superstars, even LeBron James's numbers are better in the queue versus being on the road outside the 51 he had in Game 1. So with that being said, Brent, I think LeBron James will get back to being who he is at home, and hopefully, if you're Cavs fans, these role players can finally make some shots.
I think the thing, Casey, that I worry about a lot of things with regards to the Cavs having to beat what the Warriors represent, but the disparaging thing is that in Game 2, they did get great contributions. They had tremendous scoring balance. You look at the starting group there, 4 of the 5 starters for the Cavs in double figures, an aggressive George Hill. Kevin Love had a fantastic game. And it's still not enough. It was so divergently different than the offensive attack of LeBron having 51 and going downhill every possession, driving into the Golden State team. This was LeBron trying to get his teammates going, and to some degree they did. And it's just still not enough when you look at what Golden State could do offensively, shooting 57% in the game and really never feeling much threat in Game 2, especially in the second half after the Curry flurry of points. And LeBron took a much different approach, 3D. We can look at it by the numbers in terms of where it was that he fed his teammates in Game 2 to give him opportunities.
And open opportunities, guys, right? I mean, 3D, it was a shooter's paradise, if you will. A dream for you. We didn't see the performance from Jeff Green we got in Game 7 of the last series. Korver missing shots. A lot of missed opportunities, even though Kevin Love hit a couple of threes in the third quarter. Overall, not good enough.
Well, to Brent's point, the 51 set up the different LeBron, because now coming into the game, the Warriors think, well, LeBron's coming downhill. So now Ty Lue, a few wrinkles. You've seen guys coming off screens. You saw in transition where LeBron would come halfway down the court, and then he would see someone open and give the ball up early. And to your point, Jeff Green and guys like that, for whatever reason, once again, are not playing with the same confidence on the road as they do at home.
Yeah, try to compartmentalize it because we can go 1,000 directions about it. Let's focus on the Cavs and what they did offensively. LeBron in 2 games has had 50 potential assists in 2 games. I mean, that number is just ridiculous, and we know it's turned into more of the Houston Rockets isolation offense with LeBron doing that. But in Game 2, they were 3 of 12, the Cavaliers overall, on open threes. They were 6 of 11 on wide open threes, so they shot the ball well there. But 9 of 27. It's got to go the other way for them to have a chance here at home. The open threes and the ones that were tight, they were 0 for 3. So you're talking about a 3 for 15 performance from the Cavs in terms of the three-point shooting. And those are all coming at the hands of LeBron James, giving them those opportunities. They've been better at home. We will get into the numbers a little bit later. They have been much better at home. They'll have to be in Game 3 to keep this series alive.
You know, we saw a lot of, speaking of three-pointers, a lot of those, not only from Jeff Green, who you see there in Game 7 of the last series, but Kyle Korver really throughout this run. He's been great for LeBron since he got there. But the Warriors are doing a good job defending him. What are they doing specifically, Bones? Take us through that when you look at Korver offensively in this series.
Well, coaches always talk about if you've got a great shooter, you want to know what flavor gum he's chewing. That's how close you want to be. That's the Warriors' approach with Kyle. And you see there's just not much disconnect. No matter where the ball is on the floor, they're hugging up against a three-point shooter. In 3D, you know this.
Yes.
Kyle creates space because of this, but the Golden State team is willing to give up that space to make sure Kyle doesn't do the damage.
Well, they're giving up that space because now they want George Hill to be more of a scorer. And as you notice, Bones, now when you're staying locked in trail and you're switching with the purpose for Kyle Korver.
And you look at Kyle and how impactful he was during the regular season for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Again, Golden State just tons of attention to where Kyle is. Even on plays late on the clock, Casey, a play like that, most of the guys defensively, you'd start shifting off of your man, making your way to the elbow or outside the key in case there's a long rebound. They're not even doing that. The Warriors are content to let anybody else from their team get the rebound, stick with Kyle, give him no room. And this year, Kyle was one of the best fourth-quarter three-point shooters. Wayne Ellington, number 1 during the regular season, made 77. Kyle, number 2 at 72. Lou Williams, number 3 at 70. But Kyle had the fewest attempts. And during the regular season, how many games did Kyle Korver bail out the Cavaliers?
He was the 4th Korver.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
There you go. I like the
massive
That's
threes.
right.
And so what Golden State knows is we're going to take it away. So in the 2 games, Kyle is 1 of 3 in the 4th quarter. They're not letting him impact the game at all with his shooting. That starts to erode a little bit of the confidence that you have where, in case of emergency, let's break out Kyle Korver. Golden State's not allowing it.
You know, I want to talk about LeBron because regardless of what the arguments are going to be, best ever or not, he has taken his game at this age to even another level. The way he has played, that Game 1 performance, it's sad that it's talked now about the JR play 3D, not about LeBron. But I want to get to what you just said. 2 different LeBrons. We saw the one that was aggressive. Then we saw the one that aggressively tried to facilitate. Which one do we see in Game 3?
You'll still see the LeBron James in attack mode because Game 1 set up Game 2. Talking to Steve Kerr the other day, he said what's been difficult this year with LeBron is that the knockdown 3. Coming down in transition, you go under a screen, or if you don't switch with the purpose you saw in Game 1, he steps right into the three-point shot. So now the fact that LeBron is shooting the basketball with a lot of confidence, he has to stay in attack mode. So now coming home for Game 3, you're coming downhill, Brent. You're hoping that now Steve Kerr shrinks the defense a little bit and the role players start making shots. But to see LeBron play at this level and the way he's shooting is pretty phenomenal.
He did not shoot the ball well from mid-range in Game 2, and Steve made a few adjustments with what they wanted to do defensively. Some of that might be just taking away his strong hand and forcing him to go to the left a little bit, tilt the defense, if you will, so that predictively the back line of the Warriors defense knows where he is. I thought the substitution of JaVale McGee for Steve Kerr was also impactful because if LeBron does break the first line of defense, now you have a vertical rim defender down there that uses length. There's a little more congestion down there. LeBron is amazing the way that he's processing games. As series goes on, he figures more and more out. He knew in this series coming in that his approach in Game 1 had to be different. We saw that.
Right.
51 points. I mean, ridiculous number. 51 points going at Golden State. In Game 2, a different approach that wasn't enough against their team because defensively, Golden State is causing too much disadvantage for the type of cast and personnel this year that the Cavaliers are constructed with around LeBron James.
I know we're going to lose him for a little bit because DZ's going to leave, but you want to know how important he is? Got on the plane yesterday, true story or not. He's got 3B, I've got 3C. I get down and I sit in my seat. There's already somebody in 3B, the person who moved to leave 3D open, the window seat.
There you go.
For Mr. Playoffs only. What can you say other than, as EJ likes to say, Steffortless? With the 9 3-pointers record, there was so much question, Bones, about his injury and health and the rust and when it was going to wear off. And then all of a sudden we snapped a finger, and Steph has gone to being the best player on the Warriors team through 2 games in the series.
Well, I think Steve Kerr had a game plan about Steph returning from this injury and making sure that 2 things happen. One is that Steph would regain his confidence. That's first and foremost. And then secondly, the team around Steph understood how confident they needed to play in the wake of the injury to him. In the Houston series, it was a sort of a progressive thing. I think Steve Kerr talked to Steph a lot about trying to keep the game as simple as possible. There have been times in Steph Curry's career in big games where he's gotten really excitable and tried to make huge plays, over-the-shoulder passes, behind-the-back drop passes and things of that nature that he tried to avoid in the Houston series. One, to make sure there's no turnovers and to start feeling deflated, but to help his team have more possessions to win a basketball game. That time has passed. We're in the finals now, and through 2 games, Steph has been remarkable. I feel bad for Jetty Osman. That the record-setting 3 is against him. After he made 8 threes, Ty says, Jetty, go guard him. That's not cool, by the way. But Steph has been remarkable and took that game over with some Curry flurries at Oracle.
We've got our own David Aldridge down on the floor as the Cavs are getting ready on their side. DA, I remember the interview you did with that time 6th man of the year, Steph, after the 1 game he came off of the bench. He hasn't shown much rust since then. How about how quickly we've seen ankles be an issue now on this team with a couple of players, how quickly he's been able to come back and look like Steph form?
Well, it took him a couple of series. I mean, he came back in the middle of the New Orleans series and was a little rusty. The first game he played great with the adrenaline, and then the next 2 or 3 games of that series, he really kind of struggled a little bit. But I think getting through that series helped, and I think I'd say about midway through the Houston series, he really started to look like himself again and has carried that throughout the last 4 or 5 games that the Warriors have played. Certainly the first 2 games of the finals, he looks like the Steph Curry of old, completely healthy. He has said throughout this that his knee was fine. He has continued to maintain that once he came back, his knee was fine. But I do think the timing, the rust, some of those things did take a while for him to get through.
I think the other part that's interesting, DA, is the fact that the opponents that you play sometimes can impact how it is that a coaching staff is going to view your return to the floor. Mm-hmm. So for Steph to come back against the uber-fast, high-paced, high-octane offense of New Orleans was something that they were cautious of. But I think that helped him when it came to the Houston series where it was going to be down to isolation play. And so that has helped him settle in. The opponents sometimes can impact how your confidence grows with what you can do, how you can do it, and when you can do it.
No question, no question. And the New Orleans series was kind of, it was kind of an outlier because Durant had such a physical advantage over the Pelicans defenders. I mean, actually, I thought Jrue Holiday was the best guy, the best defender against him, but for the most part, Durant, it was like shooting over a chair. I mean, he could just get whatever shot he wanted. It was hard not to go to that matchup. It was also hard not to play at the pace that the Pelicans wanted to play at because that's the pace the Warriors like to play at. So you're exactly right. Once the series slowed down, I do think the first 2 or 3 games against Houston, it took the whole team a while to figure out with the switching off the ball on the weak side, especially Bones. They just really discombobulated them for a while. Now they grounded out and they figured it out as the series went on, but it did take them a few games to figure it out.
DA, there's no question if anybody underrated the importance of Andre Iguodala before the playoffs, they're not now, which makes it even scarier that it's a 2-0 lead in this series anyway. What's the status on Iggy and where we stand with him? Well,
right now, I still don't know if Game 3 is a possibility for him. He is starting to shoot. That's important because he hadn't been doing that until very recent, the last couple of days, and doing some things on the floor he had not been able to do previously. Now, that doesn't mean he's playing in Game 3. I'm not sure we're there yet, and we'll hear what Steve Kerr has to say in a bit on that. But I think the confidence level is that at some point, if this series gets to Games 6 and 7, you'll see Iguodala back on the floor. But make no mistake, it was a bone bruise, and, 3D and Bones, you guys know this better than anybody. When you have a bone bruise, it's there until it's not there, and then you wake up one morning and it's not there anymore, and you're good to go. But until then, you're not, and so that's where Iguodala still is.
DA, appreciate it. Thank you. We'll check in with you later in the show. Thanks.
Sure.
All right, David Aldridge down on the floor. Let's get to the matchup.
I wanted to say so. I feel
Go
like
ahead. Yeah.
DA said, the bone bruise is there until it's not there. That's how Dennis is if he comes out to Los Angeles in the summer and stays at my house.
Yeah.
He's there until he's not there.
Until he's not there?
I wish that he would understand that a little bit
Well, if
better.
you remind people where you live in Los Angeles, nobody would want to stay in your house.
Yeah, that's true.
It's, Manhattan Beach.
True.
You want to give the address?
No, you just
All right,
gave too much away.
Let's talk about, regardless of where Steph has been located, it's been a problem. But Kevin Love and that matchup we've watched a lot, and it's almost like you struggle for him with how much he's trying to be impactful defensively, yet having a problem. What are you seeing with Lev?
I'm wondering if Steph is attacking the Kev Love matchup in terms of the switching, because of a couple years ago when Steph got shut down on one big play. There was a lot of talk about that one big play, and Steph's made several big ones so far in this series. And there will be a lot of chatter about this in the next 48 hours leading up to the game about how often do you want to give up this quick switch and be at a disadvantage to start the possession. Here's just an incredible job of Steph on a relocation. Once he gets the defender moving, your tendency after a pass is to relax, and then Steph goes back out to the three-point line. And most big guys, Casey, obviously they're conditioned to play a certain way against their given matchup, that you would start to gravitate towards the lane, you would start to work into rebound position, you want to put a body on somebody to end the possession with a rebound. But if you're Kevin Love and you're playing Steph Curry, that's not an option. Your option is to get to Steph as quick as possible. He's going to create space by moving without the ball. He's going to set screens away from the ball. They're sometimes going to set picks in order to get the easy switch. And Kevin Love guarded Steph Curry more than any other Cavalier in Game 2. That is not a recipe for success. So the interesting thing for Ty Lue is, how are they going to combat that? Is it going to be a trap until Steph gets away from the ball, or are we going to fight through the initial screen a couple of times so we're just not giving up that disadvantage with so much time on the clock and so much room for Steph Curry to operate?